Hi everyone, my name is Marie Quirke. I'm the GM of Marketing and Fundraising at the Flying Doctors in Victoria. Jono, I usually try to avoid you at this time of year so you don't nab me, but you got me this year. I'd like to respectfully acknowledge the traditional owners of the land from which I'm presenting today, and that's the Yalukit Wheelam clan of the Bun Wurrung, and I pay my respect to elders past, present and emerging. I'm just going to share my screen so we can kick off the presentation, and that should minimize me in the corner. So I wish I'd thought of that. This one, maybe I'm cheating a little bit, but it's the story of a pay it forward campaign. It spans 173 years, had a return on investment of 40,000%, and it's a perfect example of all of the benefits of long-term fundraising relationships. And it's a reminder of the value of staying connected in these rather disconcerting times as well. So journey with me, if you will, to 1847. To Oklahoma in the first instance. The Choctaw tribe have been removed from their land and settled west of the Mississippi in Oklahoma. And they are going through all of the struggles associated with the resettlement, loss of culture, and finding their feet in a new home. They had made the journey over 600 miles, and it was called the Trail of Tears. Thousands of people died on that journey of resettlement in the harsh conditions. On the other side of the Atlantic in Ireland, you've got an Irish people who've also been resettled onto small holdings, and the only viable crop for them to feed their family was the potato. The crop failed, blight hit many countries in Europe at the time. 1847 was known as Black 47. 1 million people died and 2 million people emigrated overseas. So it was probably in that flood of Irish immigration and settlement in the US that the Choctaw Indian tribe heard of the plight of the Irish in 1847. And they became one of a list of humanitarian aid international donors to the Irish. Now, it really struck a chord with the Irish. You know, there's a list of donors. The Queen was top of the list with her gift. The Ottoman Turks were on the list. Malta was on the list. And the Choctaw Indians provided the lowest dollar value, but it really resonated with the Irish people. And I think the gift was based on a lot of empathy for a shared experience. And it knocked their socks off, quite frankly. And the Choctaw tribe, they have a word for it to give, and that's ima. And the connotation in their language is that there's no strings attached. And while there's no strings attached, there's certainly ties that bind. And we started to build a relationship. And this spanned the centuries, but in the 90s, we really ramped up that engagement. In 1990, a delegation from the Choctaw Nation arrived in Ireland to do a hunger walk in County Mayo. I really hope that was in the summer months. And they said they felt like royalty, and everybody still referenced the gift. And it was certainly something of legend with an older generation in Ireland. In 1992, a group of Irish men and women went and walked the Trail of Tears, and they raised $1,000 for every dollar that the Choctaw Nation had sent in 1847. At the time, Somalia was in famine, so they decided to direct the gift there. In 1995, Mary Robinson, and I'm a huge fangirl of Mary Robinson, she was the president of Ireland at the time. She visited the Choctaw Nation, and more recently, Leo Varadkar, the PM of Ireland, visited the nation on a St. Patrick's Day tour. And little did Leo know 2 years ago on St. Patrick's Day that on St. Patrick's Day 2020, the Choctaw Nation would record their first instance of COVID-19 in the community. Major concern being an Indigenous population, as we know here in Australia, and with any Indigenous population, coronavirus can cause huge problems. So they wanted to protect their vulnerable community and defend against COVID-19. So the fundraising team set up a GoFundMe page. They reached out to their existing donors and the broader community in the US. And then something pretty unusual started to happen. It was an viral campaign. So someone in Ireland picked up on this campaign on Twitter, and they knew the backstory, they knew the history. And from there was a surge of giving. It was time for Ireland to repay that amazing gift back in 1847 from a tribe who could ill afford to give. So Pat Hayes says it best, from Ireland 170 years later, the favour is returned to our Native American brothers and sisters in your moment of hardship. Suddenly, and I can imagine the supportive services team looking after the back end of this campaign, it started to look like an Irish phone book. Gifts were flooding in from Niamh O'Connell and Sean O'Riordan and Mick O'Reilly. And it was just this amazing surge of giving. And in no time at all, the Irish contingent had contributed over $2 million to this little GoFundMe campaign. It's at 4 million now, and it's growing all the time. This is a week old. It also went viral across all the major news networks and on Twitter. So this amazing moment occurred where we got our chance to finally say thank you, built on the strength of that relationship and the ties over the years. So why do I love this campaign? Overseas aid, it's at a time when research says it's at odds with our instincts, that we tend to keep our money at home when we ourselves are in crisis. This $2 million gift overseas clearly demonstrates that that's not always the case. We just need a good case for support and a really good proposition, and the donors won't let us down. It also highlights the interconnectedness through the generations. I feel like we had lost the story a little bit, and it's suddenly, through a digital platform, allowed a whole new generation of Irish and Choctaw Nation residents to connect on this story and bring it back to life. It's a pretty funky acquisition as well. They've got thousands of new Irish donors, so that'll make for some interesting segmentation challenges down the track. But they still have that unique connection to the cause, so who knows, that might go on and generate great things. And finally, the relationship was everything, and it reminds us to think long term, very long term sometimes. And I think in the context of I wish I'd thought of that, I think we all wish we knew how to make things go viral. And I think what I learn or take from this campaign is, if we focus enough on the relationships and the interconnectedness with our donors along the way, we create enough surface area for these things to organically grow and go viral. And that's what I'm taking from this amazing connection and campaign. And I'll leave you with some words from Vanessa, who was part of the fundraising campaign. And she said, acts of kindness from Indigenous ancestors past being reciprocated nearly 200 years later through blood memory and interconnectedness. And for me, this is all about interconnectedness and relationships. So stay connected, everyone, digitally, of course. Hug a dog, hug a tree, just not a human right now, and stay safe, and thank you.